I know I'm late to this, but what can we do? Life gets in the way. So, chapter 1109 of One Piece. We start this chapter with a cover story of Onigashima in the seas under Wano. Honestly, I'm really interested in this cover story, not because it's been so long since we have had one, but also because Onigashima was a mysterious island, an island with a different name in the past. So, I'm really interested in seeing how Oda executes this. So, continuing on with the chapter. I love these transition chapters that Oda does. Makes the world sound much more bigger and much more connected, and it also contributes to the stakes of the story. Though the main point of this video is going to be the voice of all things, I'm going to talk about that as we go through this video. So the point is the things that I found interesting in this chapter, of course, all the reactions from the world. We are always excited to see all our past characters, interact with them, what they are doing. The most interested I was in was Vivi because she is at the center of information, at the center of manipulation. Whatever the message Vegapunk is trying to convey is, Big News Morgan will have a role in manipulating it. So it will be really interesting what side he chooses, the world government or Luffy. Considering earlier in the chapters, he was willing to paint Luffy in a bad light, paint him as sort of a kidnapper of Dr. Vegapunk, the most genius man in the world. So I'm really excited to see what the newspapers are going to be, considering Vivi is going to be there and she's going to be an X Factor. She's top 5 most important side characters in the story at this point in the final saga. There's no doubt about that. So I am really interested to see how that goes. We also see the giants in the background in this chapter. A giant has reached their giant ship, but this also confirms Dory and Broggy aren't with Frankie. So Dory and Broggy are going to come to Luffy and they are going to face off with him against the 5 Gorosei. So that's going to be really fun. Now coming on to the Gorosei point. This is a really interesting situation here because I always believed that Zunisha wasn't punished by the world government but by the Kozuki clan. When we look at Zunisha as a concept, Zunisha as a character, Zunisha as this huge force in the One Piece world, he has been working for 800 years for a crime he committed, and he was a companion of Joy Boy. And he was commanded to walk the seas until I don't know how long. But the point was, everyone always believed it was the world government. I never did. I thought it was the Kozuki clan. Because only Momo and Odin and his line, the Kozuki line, have the power to command Zunisha. I mean, saying that Zunisha was punished by the world government would be the equivalent of saying that a Sea King was punished by Emu. Only Poseidon has the power to control Sea Kings. So I've never believed that it was the world government that punished Zunisha, but the Kozuki clan in the 100-Year Void. But this changes things. Because one more nitpick I had with the story was, why do only the good guys have the voice of all things? Of course, Blackbeard could have it and that would negate this discussion, but I always wanted to see someone from the world government side have the voice of all things. Now I have seen all this talk of the Gorosei being emus, parts, emus, beings, the beings that were created by emus, extensions in a kind of way. But if they are not, if they are their own thing and they have the voice of all things, that makes the situation a whole lot more interesting to me. Because the first point is, this will negate my something that I didn't always like in the story, the voice of all things being something that also the bad guys have. It's not something just the good guys have, but also the bad guys. But this will also confirm a plot point for me, because of course all of the fandom has always believed that the world government punished Zunisha. I never believed it because I never thought they had the power to do it. But if the world government truly do have the voice of all things, if the Gorosei truly do have the voice of all things, then maybe one of them or Emu has the power to command Zunisha to walk for eternity. Considering the crime he committed, I mean, we have seen this with Kuma too and the Buccaneer tribe. The Buccaneer tribe committed a crime some 800 years ago. So the crime angle is not new. Of course, you could say that screams world government, but I never believed it because I never thought the world government had the power to command Zunisha. But this opens that door. This really makes it possible. Getting to the Luffy stuff. I mean, what can I say? This might be the greatest feat any character has performed in the story yet. And no, I am not exaggerating here. The only reason Saturn isn't getting hurt is because Luffy doesn't know how his body works. Similar to Zoro and King. Zoro had the attacks to damage King, but he didn't know how his body worked. It's just that. Otherwise, if Luffy knew, this would be a whooping of 2 Admiral level characters. I mean, I don't personally believe Saturn is Admiral level, but considering in this chapter he performed better than Kizaru, what can you say? And of course, getting to the Kizaru point, I don't think he's holding back. I don't think all that nonsense about him holding back. He's completely going all out. But have we seen him do his strongest yet? No. So, of course, you would say that it would be stupid to even think that he is going all out. No, it isn't, considering Luffy also hasn't used his strongest attacks yet. But Luffy's performance, great. He's living up to the Emperor title really, really well. And there's also a callback to Shanks in chapter 1 when Shanks said that don't hurt my friends, that's the only line you shouldn't cross. With Luffy here saying that as long as my friends are here and are in danger, you aren't going anywhere. And him changing this whimsical nature of his fights that he was fighting in Egghead up until now to going serious suddenly, which opens another interesting possibility. What is Gear 5 exactly? Is it just something that puts Luffy in a good mood and makes him laugh and tune force? Or is it the display of every human emotion at its highest level? The panel at which the last chapter ended made me think too much. Gear 5 maybe has more to it than we personally think. And all the criticism of Gear 5 about it being too goofy, the only criticism I have is Gear 5 shouldn't be used as often as it is used. Here, it was necessary, but before, no. Gear 5 should remain unique. And the second thing, all of Luffy's fights don't need to be serious. No. Only the serious fights do. And the only two serious fights remaining in the story are Blackbeard and Emu. And against Blackbeard, Gear 5 wouldn't work, so that's the perfect setup for you. And against Emu, I don't think Gear 5 will have any point if it isn't a fight of freedom versus control, laughter versus despair. So I think the Emu fight needs Gear 5. So I don't agree with the Gear 5 criticisms. I just disagree with Oda on how intensely the Gear 5 transformation has been used. It should not be used that much. It, of course, kills the stakes one and it decreases the uniqueness of Gear 5. We love Gear 5. Conceptually, it's one of the greatest things Oda has ever done. One of the greatest things in storytelling, period. One of the greatest things in shonen, period. But it needs to stay unique. So that's that. And what the message is going to be, I think message will be intercepted. I don't think the entirety of the message will get across to the world. The only incidents that I personally believe will get through to the world will be the truth about the O'Hara incident, the truth, somewhat of a truth about the White Century, and the name of the ancient kingdom. That's all there is to it. I don't think the entire truth is getting revealed here. I think the Gorosei do succeed in failing the transmission because that's Luffy's journey. Luffy has to learn that on Laugh-Tale, on the last island. And you can also be sure that after the transmission ends, we will be left with more questions than answers because that's how Oda does things. And it's also interesting how the Zoro versus Lucci situation suddenly has become more important considering that's where the transmission is happening. That's where the Gorosei are trying to go. So the situation we were all dismissing as something that was just taking panel time and Zoro needed to end the fight quickly, that fight has suddenly become decisive now. That fight has suddenly become something that's quite possibly the most important thing in Egghead from our side. And now, considering the Gear 5 thing I mentioned earlier in this video, I might be making a video on Gear 5 soon addressing this new development that has been happening, the new development that I consider is a huge, huge change in how we perceive Gear 5 that happened in the last chapter, the last panel, when Luffy was serious in Gear 5. Actually serious. All the serious Gear 5 panels before, there were really few. I always thought were inconsistencies or Oda's part, or just because Luffy was facing difficulty with his opponent, against his opponent. But that panel changed many things for me. So there might be a Gear 5 video coming. So stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed this, like, comment and subscribe, and I hope I will see you next time.